Alrighty, it's time for another 6mm arc video. Now, I ended up snagging some of the 105 Botel Hollow Point online, and a local retailer had some IMR 4166 Enderon. Now, this powder is not listed in any of the load data I can find, but on the burn rate chart, seems like it would work. Now, it's also one of the Enderon powders, so it's going to be very temperature stable. Or at least so they claim. We're going to continue using our 2x fired 6.5 Grendel brass and our Winchester number 41 small rifle primers. Now, because we have no load data, I tried to use a couple different sources, look at Hornady's load data for other similar powders, so on and so forth, and I ended up running through Gordon's reloading tool and coming up with something around 28 grains for a max. Now, this may be way too high, so don't just blatantly follow this, but we're going to start out fairly low at 26 grains. In 2/10 increments, work our way up to 28 grains if pressure allows. Now, these hit the lands in my rifle at 2.235, so pretty short. So we're going to have to go 2.225 cartridge overall length. This is going to cause our top loads to be fairly compressed. So again, I'd use caution paying attention to any of this load data right now until you watch the video, because I don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, hopefully we can get up somewhere around 2,700 feet per second without too many pressure issues, and then we'll have a nice temperature stable powder to shoot these at longer ranges. So let's get out there and let's see if we get into any trouble. Alrighty, we are out here on the range. You'll see the details of the gun kind of listed on the screen there. We're doing a ladder test with IMR 4166 and the 105 Botel Hollow Point. Now, it's super cold today. It's like 25 degrees and it's really windy. Now, luckily the wind is blowing kind of from behind me and off the right, so hopefully it's not messing up our audio too much. Getting velocity through our lab radar. The gun is cold. We're going to go ahead and see where we get to with our velocity, since we're kind of in some unknown range with no load data. Kind of curious where we're going to start. Hopefully we start high 2500s. And move up from there and maybe get to 2,700 on the top end. All right, so I'm gonna single feed these so I can keep track. We're starting at 26 grains here with this first shot. Again, probably 2,500 feet per second, something like that. 2,550 maybe. Okay, we're actually 2597 on that first one. Okay, moving up to 26.2. All right, that one was 26.27, so I think we're going to be a little bit hotter than what we expected. All right, 26.4. That one was 2630 feet per second. Okay, now we're going to be 26.6 grains. All right, that one was 2659 feet per second. Brass still looks okay. 26.8 up next. Looks like those last three kind of grouped together too. Alright, that one was 2670. Again, brass is looking okay. Bolt lift was just fine. Alright, 27 grains here. Alright, so we hit 2,700 feet per second. Our brass looks okay. I might see one little ejector smear. Let's go up to 27.2 grains. We did have a little point of impact shift there too, down I believe. Okay, that one was 27.02. And again, maybe just ever so slight smear on that piece of brass. Doesn't look scary. And 27.4 here. Right, that one was 27.27, and look at that. Don't know if you could see there, but we blew our primer. So definitely going to stop there. Now, we did notice those two little swipes on those two earlier pieces, but apparently we're going to get a pretty quick spike on this powder here. So we made it to 27.2, and then 27.4 we blew our primer. So we're going to have to pull these other three. And we're probably going to have to back down a little bit as well. All right, well, let's get back to the bench. All right, so looking at the brass here, on the left it's the lowest charge and we're moving to the right. So as you can tell here, not really seeing much at all. We've got the 26 here and then kind of moving up in 210s. It's not until we get to really that low just before we blew that primer, where if we can get it to focus, can we see that just at the top? It's hard to see, but you can see that little bit of a smear there. And after further evaluation, it looks like there's even a little bit of a raised up burr kind of right there that I probably didn't pay enough attention to. Probably should have noticed that a little bit more. Now, looking at that one that we blew the primer on, it's really not that damaged either. You can see that ejector smear kind of right there, but it's not raised up. It doesn't look like the brass is destroyed. However, that primer pocket is completely shot now. So probably gonna pay a little bit more attention to some of these really light ejector smears. You can kind of see that ejector smear there on our 27 grain load as well. But really this brass didn't show a lot of signs of overpressure, so potentially being a pretty quick powder, it spiked pretty quickly on 27.2 and then obviously 27.4. But primer doesn't look too bad on 27.2. We'll have to see if that primer pocket smoked too. But this is definitely the risk you take whenever you're kind of going with no load data. Alrighty, so it'll be a quick look at the target here. Looks pretty good. All 8 of these shots grouped into 1.1 inches with our best 7, which doesn't include that cold bore shot, just at about 0.8. So looking really good. Now, obviously we got into pressure issues on the range, so we don't want to use anything near the top end. I'm probably going to stay away from 27 grains, 27.2 grains, and 27.4 grains, just to give us a little bit of leeway on pressure. So I think what I'm actually going to do is we had a little bit of a plateau at 26.2 to 26.4 grains. We only had 3 feet per second change, right around 2630 feet per second. That seems like a good buffer, about 100 feet per second slower than where we blew that primer, to give that a try. Now, I do have 3 pieces of brass that need pulled, so we might end up shooting a 3-shot group at 27.27. I'm really not sure what we're going to do with those 3, but we'll probably load up a 5-shot group at 26.3 grains and see if we can get a good 5-shot group. All right, so we're back out on the range here. We're shooting a 5-shot group. Now, this is new brass. It's actually the new brass that you guys saw me size down from 6.5 Grendel a couple weeks ago. So technically we're fire forming this stuff. So it might be a little bit different velocity than what we saw the other day. Now I did have 3 shots fired through the gun here. So the gun is warmed up. It's not a cold bore. We're gonna see what this 5-shot group does. Same gun you guys saw earlier in the video. Should be around 2630, 2640 feet per second. It's a little warmer today, and it's extremely windy. So hopefully the wind doesn't mess up our audio or our groups too much. So we're gonna go ahead and see how she groups. Alright, that one was 2634. That was 2645. $26.31. And we've got a little bit of a breeze here. Probably give that just a second. It was quite low at 2,600. Interesting number there. All right, that one was 2606. So for whatever reason, we had a little bit of drop in our velocity there as we went along. Interesting. Yeah, we had a 19.5 SD with 2623 for an average. Group looks really good. Let's get over there and check it out. Alrighty, so we're taking a look at the brass here. That brass right here are the three that I pulled and refired at 26.3. They look pretty good. Primers look nice and round. No ejector smears. Nothing crazy going on that there. Now these four here and this one here are the one that we just fired, which is new Hornady brass with that same load. These four here look pretty good. Nothing weird going on with them. There are some weird lines on this brass here, but I pulled some of the other new ones, kind of like that one there, right? That one's never been fired. That one's brand new. And you see how it's got some of those weird lines kind of around the head stamp? We see some of that here on these four, which I guess is just normal. Maybe it's because they're trying to pump out more brass, more stuff getting through quality control. Now this one right here, I don't know if you're going to see it on camera, but it sure does look like there's a crack around that primer that some gas has leaked through. So it's pretty tough to see on camera, but right about there, it looks like there's a crack. So I don't know if this was a manufacturing defect. I've never seen this before, but it sure does look like, again, I don't know if I can get it on camera, but it sure does look like there's a crack around that primer that has leaked some gas out. So like I said, I've never seen this before. I don't think that we're over pressure because I know we're almost 100 feet per second slower than where we blew that primer. And all 1, 2, 3, 4, those 7 there look just fine, and they're all the same charge. Primer looks good, nothing scary like that. So I think this one might have been a defective piece of Hornady brass. Alrighty, so taking a look at the target here. That target you see on the left there was not on camera. Those were the 3 rounds that I had pulled and reloaded at a lower charge. My wife actually shot that 3-shot group with the gun cold, 0.89 inches, 2648 feet per second, and a 6.1 SD. Now moving over to the group on the right, that's the one you guys saw on camera. That was same charge, 26.3 grains. Now this was new Hornady brass that had been sized down from 6.5 Grendel to 6mm arc and its first firing. Now this one shot 2623 feet per second with a 19.5 SD. So SD fell apart there and our velocity dropped a little bit. But we shot a really, really nice looking 0.39 inch group. So I'm guessing those weird velocity numbers are just because this is new Fireform brass and it is 6.5 Grendel brass that I'm firing down to 6 arc. So I'm guessing there's a little bit something weird going on there as we're kind of firing it to form that chamber. Hopefully the next time we fire this with some Fireform brass, we'll get some nice SDs, but we'll have to fire some more brass before we can do that. So pretty happy with IMR 4166. I mean, 2630 feet per second, it's probably 100 or so feet per second slower than what you'd get out of some of the ball powders, but it should be a very temperature stable powder, and you definitely can't argue with that group size. I mean, this is with very minimal load development. Now, I would caution anybody using this powder, as you can see from some of the brass issues we had earlier in this video, definitely be careful with this because we're in unknown territory. We really don't know what the pressures are. Also, a little bit worried about that weird piece of Hornady brass. It sure does look like it's cracked to me in a pretty weird spot. So I don't know if some of this new Hornady brass that's coming out is not as high quality as some of the old stuff. I've heard a lot of people complain about Hornady brass, but I've never had much issue with it. Got to get what you can right now in today's situation. But thank you guys for watching. I really enjoyed shooting this video. Sure is fun to shoot a 0.39 inch group, so we'll see you next week. Thanks for subscribing.